Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Manifesting Abundance video show. Sue, if you could hold on a second, I'll introduce you in just a moment. Okay. Hopefully, I think Sue just got on. Anyway, here I am. I'm Kathryn Yarborough, and I am your show's host, and I'm really excited to be here again today with my wonderful friend and colleague and guest, Sue Fitzmaurice, and we'll get her on the show in just a second. But I just wanted to tell you, briefly that the intention of this Manifesting Abundance show is to provide information in a fun and informative and useful way that is motivational and inspiring for those of us who are co-creating or creating our lives by design rather than default, or who are wanting to. So I'm bringing in guests who are doing that. And I'm doing some other cool stuff. Like in the last show, I did this sort of channeling thing. So anyway, you can find out more about the shows at flowingwithchange.com/videos. So I think that's all I want to say. Oh, one more thing. And in general, I'm going to be doing the shows on Mondays and Thursdays at 1 o'clock Eastern Time in the U.S. That's also 10 a.m. in Pacific Time, and I believe in the UK it's 6 p.m. So anyway, welcome everyone, and hello, Sue.
Hi.
Hello. Wow, your hair just keeps going on.
Your advertising material had this set at 1/2 the hour for some reason, so which is why I'm late, because I suddenly thought, oh, well, there was this one thing that said 6, so perhaps I better get on there at 6, because everything else said 6:30. Did you realize that?
No, I did not realize that. So
we might have people turning up at 1/2. So.
Well, my intention for this is to be a 30-minute show, so I'll have to check out what's going on with that and, and see what happens. So I don't know. Weird.
Oh, do we have many people on?
No, it's just you and me right now. But what happens, Sue, is that the show is videoed. So we'll have people watching the video. It goes onto YouTube. I put it on my website and all that kind of stuff. So we just have one viewer now who joined us. So hello, welcome. We were just talking about how the time posted out there is off by half an hour. So I'm not quite sure what's wrong with that. I'll have to check that out. So anyway, Sue, welcome to you. and so I know all about you, and I don't know if all of the guests and people who are watching this show will know all about you. So why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Sue. Sue Fitzmaurice. I have a Facebook page that probably many of you have been following for some years. My thing is talking about purpose and living your purpose and finding your purpose. I also talk a lot about healing depression. At the moment, I'm traveling. One of my intentions was to travel this year, and I'm from New Zealand. I'm currently in England on the very, very beautiful southwest coast of England, West Devon. It's absolutely exquisite. It's so unbelievably English that just couldn't imagine it. It's amazing. What else? That'll do for now.
Say that last thing again.
That'll do for now.
That'll do for now. Oh, okay.
Anything else to say. I've written some books.
Yes, you do have books. But one of the things that I'm really delighted that you're one of the first guests here on this Manifesting Abundance show with the intention of talking about creating our lives by intention, or with intention rather than by default, is that one of the cool things that you're a guest is that you really have been doing that for the last few years. And I know you're a role model for some folks. You've got an online business, so you can travel, and you really did that intentionally. So I just think that's awesome, and I think people want to hear about that. So can you speak about that process a little
Sure.
bit? And yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because I was 4 years ago, I was visiting a friend in Dallas, Texas, who was building her online business, and I hadn't really even thought about that, and it was really amazing. I just decided in just this moment that I was going to do exactly that, and that I wanted to travel, and I wanted to, in particular, I wanted to travel the following year with my daughter, and I think this was in October, actually, of 2012. And so, and I mean, it just happened. I mean, my intention was just really, right, that's what I'm going to do. And I put together the initial version of my online purpose course. And I was also doing some work for a few people, looking after their Facebook pages, making their posters for them, all that kind of thing. And so the following year, that's exactly what I did. I took my daughter out of school. She was 14, turned 15 that year. And we traveled to the States and the UK, Europe and the Middle East, and Australia. And we came back at the end of 2013. And, you know, it was so amazing. We just decided that we wanted to be able to do that again. And she had 2 more years of high school. So, and she completely skipped that particular year of high school. It was quite amazing. She started off doing correspondence learning, but it was quite tricky because we were on the move all of the time. And so I just said, well, all these teachers who said, this will be the best education you've ever had, can just put their money where their mouth is and accept you into the following year of high school. So, you know, it was amazing, really. So she skipped an entire year of school that year that we were away. Went back into what was year 12. If you finish school all the way to the end in New Zealand, you go to year 13. So did year 12, year 13. By the time we got back at the end of 2012, a lot of that business that I'd had kind of dried up. I mean, we almost ran out of money a few times. So I really set about trying to build that again. I got a part-time job to pay the bills. It was a fantastic job. I loved it. And it was something that was also really good for my soul in a certain kind of a way. But the intention was to be able to build up my online business again and then quit that job at the end of 2015, last year. I handed in my resignation for the job in June or July. And I think I left in September. So so then we headed off again. Ruby finished school. We headed off again. We both left on the 5th of February from New Zealand. She went to Brazil, where she has friends. I went to the United States. We met up in New York a month later. For a week, she wanted to be able to visit the big art galleries and museums there. She wants to be an artist. So that was kind of a bit of a mecca for her. So that was just wonderful to spend that week with her in New York. She loved New York. Typical 18-year-old. Yeah.
I'm gonna cut in too, because I know you and tell the story and go on, and this is a great story because it's so inspiring. It's like, oh my God, your daughter did this traveling, and then I know she's traveling now. She graduated, and you're traveling now, and it's just amazing. But I want to come back to something that you said as you were starting, which was that you, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Go for it. Go.
Good. So, but what really struck me was that you said you created an intention to travel, and I think that there's something about that, and there's a way in which we can sort of say, oh, I wish I could travel, versus I'm going to travel with my daughter, and it's like I've got this intention to travel with my daughter, and there's it's like a different place within us when it's sort of like a possible, and then there's the sort of possible ideas. It's like, well, you know, I could travel. That's what I've been doing for the last couple of years. I could travel. Yeah, I don't know if I really want to. I could, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if you can tap into that place inside of you that really got clear that you had this intention, and describe it for us.
Do you know, it was a really interesting experience because it's probably one of the first times that in my life where an intention kind of popped into my head, and I set it right there and then. I mean, I've been very good in the past at setting intentions, but somehow this was a real turning point somehow for me. Ever since then. You know, my daughter she'd always been attracted to wanting to travel. We used to joke about, you know, if we were feeling bored, or we'd say, you know, we'd go through all this list of things to do that we could do, and we'd say, why don't we go to Paris? And so I just thought, and also my mother had died very young. I was only 20, and I'd never got to be able to do this kind of thing with her. And Ruby was 14. It just popped into my head, this is what I'm going to do. I am going to do this, and was inspired by the work that my friend Gail was doing in Dallas with her business, and thought, well, if Gail can do this, I can do this. So I'm going to make this happen, and just did. And it was just, you know, it was a decision that was made. Likewise, when we returned at the end of 2013, the decision was made that we were going away again in 2016. Or at the end of 2015, because that was what we wanted to do. Yeah, it was just a very strong impulse that, you know, it was the right thing, it was the right time, and I just was confident that I could make that happen. I mean, I didn't have an online business at that time, not at all. But I thought, well, this person can do it, so I can do it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, for me, I have these impulses that pop in that come from someplace beyond, whether it's my higher self or my intuition, that say, oh, you're going to do this. I remember years ago, I was training to be a dance movement therapist. I was driving by a hospital where I knew there was an eating disorder unit, and I had this thought in my head, oh, you're going to work there. And the eating disorder unit actually changed and moved to a different hospital. And like 2 years later, or whatever it was, when I'd finished my training, I got a phone call that said, we're looking for a dance movement therapist in our eating disorder unit. And I applied after, I don't know, there was a lot, like maybe 10 other dance movement therapists applied, and I got the job. And but it was interesting because it wasn't an intent. It wasn't what I would call an intention by any means. It was more like a pop into my head, you're going to work there, kind of intuitive sense. And I'm wondering if there's some sort of, I mean, the way you were describing it, it's like you and your daughter had a desire to travel already, you know, and then you add the thing about your mom, you know, dying when you were 20. That's a big deal. And your daughter was 14, and you're wanting to make sure that you're being the mom that you want to be, you know. That's like a whole other layer of, I want to say, power or energy or something that fueled that intention. It's fascinating to me. Thoughts about this for us, for people?
Yeah. I mean, I think also, you know, I hadn't worked in any really kind of, I'd been mostly business consulting for the previous few years, in a very relaxed kind of way. Like, I'd left the kind of corporate sphere. So I was very much in a, I'm going to see what happens to my life now phase. I was very relaxed, and I think that allowed that kind of thing to happen, and for me to make that decision. I think, you know, I'd made a deliberate decision to kind of slow down my life, and to put aside certain types of ambition that I didn't feel, I'd sort of come to realize weren't so useful to me in my life. Likewise now, you know, my intention has been this year, and I think is continuing for a while, is to say yes to opportunities that come along, just to kind of be really open to see what happens and to say yes to what comes along. So it's really all about, in a way, that's kind of about training myself to be able to be aware of those impulses, to have to easily say yes to things that that come my way. You know, I just got back from a month in India. That it wasn't part of my plan to go to India right now.
Right.
I had been thinking about going to India, and I'd been thinking towards the end of the year, after I'd already gone home, possibly to New Zealand. And then I was totally in the back and beyond of the Scottish Highlands. Like, there was nobody, you know, it's very remote. And I went out for a walk in the rain with my daughter, and these two women were walking towards us, one with a really large camera. And Ruby, because she knows what I'm like, she said, "Don't, Mum," you know, which means, you know, you're going to talk to them, I know. Because you're in the middle of nowhere and two people are on the path, and that's what you do in places like that. You know, so I chatted to them, and then we ended up having dinner with them, and one of them was an artist and was going to this project in the Himalayas, and I said, "Gosh, I'd really love to come to that." And, you know, a few weeks later I was there. So, you know, it's a kind of a training, I suppose, I'm putting myself through in a way, is to learn to follow the impulses, to say yes, to ask for what I want. You know, I wasn't invited to India. I asked if I could go. And then I was invited, you know. Yeah.
So interesting. Okay, so I'm hearing some different themes that I can relate to. One is sort of a bigger theme of being on the journey of healing and transformation, and for me, I also say awakening, which I think you're on too. You're a very spiritual too, and so in that process, as we are on that journey, different times in our lives, there are different pieces that are important to us. You spoke about in the beginning, you were letting go, you know, 4 years ago. Before 4 years ago, you had been letting go of the cultural norm of you know, corporate I say corporate America because I'm in the U.S., but the corporate world. And I know we're U.S. centric here, so my language reflects that. You're my teacher, Sue, on that.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's this. So you were because of the journey you were on, your values were changing, and you were learning how to live differently. Like for me, for years, it was all about awakening and breathing. That's still really important to me, but there's other aspects. Like right now for you, you're talking about just saying yes and asking for what you want. So it's like those are two things. So it's like there's these sort of, in terms of being intentional in our lives, there's also just ways of being. Like I'm in the process of developing the capacity of tuning into the divine and living with the cap off or the bushel off of my light all the time. Like that's my intention right now for this year. It's like, how can I live with this bushel off of my light and let myself shine? And what does that look like? And so I think that most of the time, I want to say this and then hear what you have to say about this. Most of the time when we think about manifesting and creating our lives by intention, it's like the first thing that you talked about, which was deciding to go on a trip or creating an online business, like an external thing. But then this other piece that we're talking about is the process of choosing intentionally to shift our vibration or practice ways of being and seeing what happens out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, there's all kind of different ways to kind of achieve this same end, which is, you know, kind of what we're saying. I suppose one of the things that's really affected this, particularly, is my intention also. And, you know, I went twice when I was in the States in San Francisco to see Esther Hicks with Abraham, and this message was really drummed home to me then, and my friends that I was with also, we went to see Esther and Abraham. You know, the best position to be in psychologically, as it were, in order to be open to receiving abundance and all the things that we want. Best position to be in is to be enjoying. to be enjoying your life. And so I've really, really been all about enjoying, you know, this year. And that's a big part of what the travel is about for me as well. You know, I really wanted to go to Scotland. I had a huge urge to go to Scotland. I think I've possibly got Scotland out of my system now. We'll say, I don't know, but yeah, about enjoying myself. And it's not, that doesn't mean that I have to be doing a whole lot of that I enjoy, but being in a mindset of being happy and enjoying. You know, a lot of people who follow me will know that, you know, I've talked a lot about my depression, which I no longer have, but which, you know, time. And so, you know, part of that was also learning about how to be happy, how to enjoy. So, you know, I've sort of acquired some techniques, I suppose, over the years, and how to really make this kind of put yourself into that sort of space. And it is about practice, and it is about you know, making that a part of your day to be able to do those. You know, as someone who wins Wimbledon or the US Open or whatever, hasn't done that because, you know, they decided last year that that was what they were going to do. They've been doing it for decades, and we've been for decades not learning how to control our own thoughts, how to make ourselves happy, all these kinds of things. And we do have that ability. We do have control over these kinds of things. We can learn these techniques. We can put ourselves in a space of being happy and open. And when we do that, we increase the chances also of being able to receive the things that we want to receive, and have the power and confidence to be able to set intentions, say yes to things, make things in our own lives. I think too often, you know, we think, you know, my life's miserable, nothing good is happening to me. You know, if you have the view that life happens to you, then that's, I mean, I would have thought that some years ago, but I make my life happen now. I truly make my life happen, and you know, I listen carefully to those impulses to set a new intention, to go here, to go there. After I returned from India, and while I was in India, I had a really strong attachment to, not an attachment, but a really strong feeling about Tibetan Buddhism. There's 1,000 monasteries around the Himalayas where I was staying, Tibetan Buddhist monasteries and nunneries, and I visited some of these. And I had a really strong feeling about wanting to learn more about this, because I felt that there's some beautiful value in there potentially, and I met some really interesting people. So possibly I will go back to do that. I'm kind of, that's one possible intention for me. I'm kind of waiting till I get home to New Zealand, because I feel like I have to kind of go back to a certain root position, and then I'll decide whether I'm going back to India again at the end of the year or not. It seems as though I can't quite make that decision yet. Anyway, you know, you just have to follow follow that kind of guidance, and I feel quite aware of a lot of that now. But as I've worked at it, you know, I've really worked at that.
Right, and I really appreciate what you're saying about the practice. I think that, you know, one of the things that I like about the impulse of me doing this Manifesting Abundance video show, and talking to people who are creating their life by design rather than by default, when you were talking about you know, a lot of people struggle with depression or, you know, low moods or whatever it is, you know, in that realm, anxiety, that sort of thing. A lot of that, I liked what you were saying. That's, you know, that it's like a habit, habit might not be the right word, but we didn't learn otherwise. I think that's what you were saying, like the people who, play tennis and, or any of the athletes, they've been doing that, they get to this pro level and they didn't just decide this year, they've been doing it for years. And so same thing with this, learning how to feel joy and be in joy. And I appreciate that. So, and I know that you and Sarah McCrum have a program. Is that something for people? Does that help people with that?
Well, it's interesting because I'm actually staying with Sarah. Well, Sarah's mother lives here in Devon. I'm at Sarah's mother's house. It's amazing. Just by the by, Sarah's mother is 82, and I think she's possibly fitter than me. And she is a sculptor, and she sculpts, and she's quite an inspiration. Anyway, yes, Sarah and I have a course on healing depression called The Journey from Depression, and we're just in the process of kind of rewiring that a little bit at the moment. So we're going to be releasing that again soon. But from the people who've done it so far, it's been really evident that the course is really powerful. People are healing their depression because we're teaching them these skills basically on the course, how to tune into your higher self, which is not depressed, how to let go of anger and some of these kinds of things, how to be happy, how to deal with the mind games and the thoughts that you have. So it's quite a comprehensive course. It covers quite a lot of ground, and it's full of guided meditations and relaxations, which are, they're very positive healing meditations. So it's working for people, which I'm really pleased and excited about. It kind of took me 15 years or so to figure out how to deal with this. And it took Sarah, 10 years of coaching people to deal with this, and including me. And eventually we said, we need to put this together because people can do this a lot more quickly than it's taken us to figure this out. So we're seeing people really making leaps and strides within a few weeks. And if they keep doing the meditations, then they stay on top of their depression. Yeah.
That's interesting. That's so many things that you just said, but I do want to reiterate that there's this it was echoing there for a second, a kind of weird Google Hangout thing that happens. But anyway, so that's awesome that y'all are redoing it and you're going to be putting it out to the world. So I'm going to make sure that your website is posted, on my blog when I put this up, and so people will be able to access that. But I loved what you said about the higher self isn't depressed. It's just great. And,
I know.
Yeah. So
if you understand this thing that we are spiritual beings living a physical existence, we've all been saying that for years, then the reality of who you are is a spiritual being. And the reality of a spiritual being is it lives in the spiritual world. This is just one part of you that's down here and down, there isn't an up and a down, but here in this physical plane, most of who you are is living in a spiritual plane where it's happy, joyful, and has all that it wants. Abundance is reality. So we just literally need to tap into that, and we get everything that's ours by right as spiritual beings. I've really understood the truth of this more and more the last few years. It's interesting. Sometimes I say to people that I'm working with, I only just figured that out yesterday. I'm only just a little bit ahead of where you're at. But it's it's been the last few years I've been really understanding these realities. And when I first started talking about them, I'm not sure I always completely believed them, but now I feel like I've seen the proof in myself of these things. Yeah. When I meditate, I'm really happy. because I'm tuning into that stuff, you know.
Yeah. Yep.
Even if I start off feeling miserable because I'm having a bad day and I sit down to meditate, very quickly I can tune into being happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, me. I love it. So my friend Sue, I'm so glad that you joined me today. I want you to stay here with me because I want to chat for a few minutes, but I'm just going to wrap this up and move us off air in just a second. So, so thank you, Sue. And you will definitely come back on my show, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Of course.
Good. And hopefully we'll work out the time next time and I'll get those.
Yeah.
I don't know what was going on with that, but anyway, thank you. And to everyone who's listened, I will be back with a live show on this coming Monday. I'm going to be interviewing Pat Madsen, a really cool woman who's been studying about the law of attraction for years and years and years, and she's a copywriter and editor for entrepreneurs and other folks. So really cool person. So I'm looking forward to being there. So you can find out anytime about this Manifesting Abundance show on flowingwithchange.com/videos. And please make sure you get my free ebook on how to manifest anything, and you'll learn about what I talk about, the 6 steps to manifest anything in that book. I have a 7th step, and the way to find out about that is either if I share about it here or you come to a webinar on my 7 steps to manifest anything. So thank you very much, everyone. Namaste. Have a wonderful rest of your day, whatever you're doing today.